Hi, my name is Corey Trout with CERT Horsemanship. Today I am working with some hames and traces. I will be changing out a set of traces that doesn't work well for what I plan on doing with the horse I'll be harnessing. So we're changing out the old for the new and better functioning, and I will be going over why I'm making this change and how I'm going to do it. Thank you. So what I have here today is a set of hames. I'm actually changing out the traces on them. On one side I've already done it, the other side has not yet been done, so we're going to move these ones here. What I had on here was a short tug, so this is a short tug. Long tug would actually go all the way to the saddle on the harness. This is just a short tug. You can buckle your traces in and out. It allows you to adjust the length here, which can be convenient if you're working on different vehicles and stuff, or even different sized horses. So this one has a pivot point here, so it can go up and down depending on the height of the load that you're doing. And that's all well and good, especially if you're just pulling a vehicle. What this one also has on it, as we come along the end here, is on the end I've added a trace extender, and we have heel chains. So it's a trace converter and extender. So we've gone from this one, which is a combination end. We've got a D-ring that we could attach to, or we've got the slot, and we buckled into the slot and added on the heel chains. The reason I have the heel chains on here is because we were doing some work that required the traces to be longer, and also we were hooking to working style single trees that just have the hook on it, so I needed more distance, and the chains allow me to adjust the distance there as well, so we had that going on. Now all of these attachment points create potential weaknesses. Again, this isn't such a big deal if I'm just hauling a vehicle, because vehicles are light relative to what the horse is pulling, or what the horse could be pulling. But if we're doing heavy duty stuff, if we're doing dead weight farm work and stuff like that, this buckle here and this buckle here are a weak point. This buckle here and this buckle here are a weak point. There is potential for failure if we are pulling really heavy loads over long periods of time, or even if we, hit, say, a rock while you're plowing and then the horse has to pull extra hard, or if you've got a sudden start and stop. These are both weak points that can cause breakages. So we're going to actually unbuckle this part. And this one you can maybe see at this distance, but there is just a little pooch out on this final hole here. The rest of them are nice and smooth. This one's had a little extra stress on it, so the prong has actually pushed it up and over. It hasn't actually torn. It's still perfectly fine and serviceable, but this is what I'm talking about, showing the potential for extra wear. These traces are 3-ply at the holes. You can hopefully you can see that. You've got the 2 outer plies, and then they've got a 3rd layer in here of another heavier grade bit of shiny biothane in between to add extra strength to prevent these from wearing out and ripping as much. But if you put a heavy enough load on it, you're going to break it. So we're getting rid of that. We're unbuckling here, and you can also see here just a little bit of deformation because of the weight of the load, and that's just always going to be a weak point. Any buckle is going to be a weak point when you're dealing with really heavy loads. So now that we got setting those aside, so now we just have the short tug on the trace, and we're going to replace it with a solid one. So it's new, it's still wrapped. We're going to undo that. So this is the one we're going to replace it with. It again has the bolt style attachment. This one is also, this one's actually 4-ply, but we have the heel chain end. That is also bolted on here. And then the other end is just another bolt. So we've got heavy duty stainless steel bolts that can take a lot of weight. I guess the weakest point here might be this pin, but still, it is still a pretty thick piece of metal there. And we reduce our risk of failure. So this one is also 4-ply. So we have, get a little closer here. Hopefully you can see that. We've got multiple layers here. We've got the 2 outer layers, and these are kind of for a little for look, but these are the 2 outer layers, and then we've got 2 more layers in there of, oh, is that 3 layers? That might actually be 3 layers in there. Yes, they are. So if we're looking down on this end, I'm not sure, hopefully this shows up well on the video, but we have the split here. We have actually 3 layers of nylon in here, and then here you can see it's split. It wraps around here, so we've got plenty of strength there, and we have the inner layer here that comes up. So we've got layer upon layer, which creates fail-safes and makes it even stronger. So I don't think I've seen them this thick before. I'm used to 2 and possibly 3-ply, but seeing 3 in the middle plus the 2 on the outside, that's 5 layers that you have there of strength adding in on the traces. The other things these traces have, and those ones do too, the outer layer is actually grooved, and this is where they do the stitching to hold these things together. The reason for the groove is that if it were completely flat and you had the stitching on top, they're going to be more likely to wear off. So by adding a groove into the strapping here, you reduce the risk of rubs both on your horse and on your equipment. And that, again, adds to the strength. Even old leather harnesses, they'll groove the leather where they have the stitching, especially in areas where it might rub and have some abrasion, and that's going to add strength to it and prevent it from rubbing the stitching off, because you really don't want your stitching rubbed off and then your traces come apart. So we have, let's see, what is this? This is 5/8 inch. We're just going to use our socket wrench here. Nope, wrong way. And it simply unscrews. Once we reach a certain point, we should be able to do it by hand. Yep. Wiggle it out of there. So we have our piece here, and then we have our, oh, where's my brain going? So we have the part of the trace, and then we have this tube that goes through there. This also helps prevent wear and tear, because you really don't want your bolt to fail. This gives you an extra fail-safe. And then we're going to be sure that we put this on the right way. This is the back side of the hames, this is the front. And on these traces, another cool feature on these ones, so we have a loop here. Depending on the type of harness you're putting on it, there are some work style harnesses that you have the market strap come down and it loops through here, and then you have your billet for your girth that also loops for here, so you end up with a loop here and a loop here, one for the strap that goes up to the back pad and then one for the strap that goes down to the girth, and that's where it would feed through. If you have just a saddle on yours and you have a single billet that comes down, you probably actually just ignore this. You could feed your outer false belly band billet onto this, or just ignore it entirely. But the other cool little feature, you notice this ring here. This ring is if you are transferring your team harness to a single and you don't feel like taking off the quarter straps. The quarter straps are the backing system for a pair that goes underneath the belly instead of along the sides. So what you can do is, instead of leaving your chest strap on and running the risk of your horse getting its leg caught on that, you can actually just hook your quarter straps here. Now what this will also do is, if you have the setup for a belly backer, you can hook your quarter straps here, and that's your backing mechanism also. So one of the two. If you're going single and you usually use a breast strap belly backer style system, you can hook up here so you don't have to take off your quarter straps. It's a little bit of a pain to do that, and then it's up out of the way and you don't have to worry about it. Or if you have a belly backer system, you hook in here, and then when the horse backs up, it engages through the collar to your quarter strap to the breeching. So that's another cool little feature on this set of traces. So we've got our little funky washer here, we have our bolt, we have our long tubular washer here. I'm calling it a washer, I'm not sure if that's actually the word. And we're looking at the other one to see how our other washer's set up. Had it set this way. Slide that right in there, send your bolt down, get it lined up. And the bottom of this hame is threaded. Most of them are. It doesn't have a nut on the end of it because it just threads into the hame itself. You just snug that thing down. And it does pay to every once in a while just double check your bolts to be sure that they're tight. You know, if it's hand tight and there's no gap here, you should be fine. It's going to take a lot more than one session to work that bolt out. Ta-da! So we have now changed our traces out from something that worked in the meantime but was less functional to something that is going to work for what we intend it to. So we're going to be doing pulling sleds, pulling tires, doing some drags, and this is going to be a much more efficient system than having two separate buckles and the traces that are really intended for lightweight use versus these ones that are heavier duty. And I'll bring that up for a side-by-side comparison here. So these two traces, they're both 2 inches. They're both 2 inches wide, which is a good heavy-duty size. But the difference is in the width. You notice this one here is almost twice as wide as the other one. This one again is designed for more carriage pulling, cart pulling, and it's only 2-ply here. This one, as we discussed before, is 5 layers. You've got the 2 outer layers, and then you have layers of nylon in between. This one does have extra layering, an extra layer of biothane where the holes are, and this side actually has an even thicker layer of it. So on the front side, where it attaches to the front of the breast collar, it has a thin layer. On the back side, it's got a thicker third layer because this hole is going to experience more stress than this one, but they can both experience stress. So lightweight work, heavy duty stuff, and you use what's appropriate for what you're doing. So, ta-da! Another thing to add, so if you're using heel chains, this is typically your adjustment point. You note on the other side of the trace, there's no buckle. It's just bolted right in. Again, that's the strength thing for doing heavier duty work. So this becomes your adjustability point. If you need your load closer or further away from your horse, this is what you use. So we can hook straight out here. This gives us our longest length, or we can drop one, and these are about 2 inches each. So each chain drop brings us closer to our horse. Now what happens is, if you want to hook here, you don't necessarily want all this chain dangling. So what you can do is you can actually feed the chain through itself like that. Now this is still a good amount of dangling. If I'm all the way on the last one, I may actually do it up one more time, and then it's in a nice set little ball. I'll hook up there. It still does jingle, jangle, and move around a little bit, but it's not so disturbing as having this whole thing swinging around, potentially, you know, hitting your vehicle, hitting your horse, and making a lot of noise, especially if you're going faster. So by doing it up that way, yes, it still makes noise, but it's not going to have as much momentum and hit and destroy things as much. What you can also do, if you don't like the noise so much, you can just get some vet wrap, wrap it up, and it will deaden the noise, and then it's just like having a single D-ring that you're hooking onto. Ta-da! So that works also if we're going down here with the 5th link. Just bring it up, and it hooks nicely. You can even, yeah, that one's a little messier, so about midway you want to just do a singleton. Same thing here, we can bring that up there, bring that up there, and then you just hook to your whatever you're dragging.